Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gigs Society, whose mission is creating unity through music, or as I like to say, making connections through music with the intention to bring in peace. And today I am still here in Studio One, the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gigs Society. We'll probably be here a long time, but I am so really happy and thrilled and delighted that talking with us tonight by Zoom, a person I really wanted to talk with on this for this podcast for a long time, and is very instrumental actually in getting this, whether he knows it or not, this thing going or whatever we're doing. Biko Casini with Rising Appalachia. Biko, thank you so much for taking the time to be able to have this conversation.
My pleasure, my friend. It's good to be here.
Well, you know, I somehow got enamored with Rising Appalachia, and I don't know why exactly. They popped up in social media or something, and I was like, whoa, and then I bought CDs, and then I started going to shows, and you know, it was really, they just really, that band, it's my favorite band. What you bring to the audience, what you bring out, you know, the love, the focus on culture, permaculture, art, all these things is just so needed and great. And, I just can't sort of thank, you know, the whole band enough, and what you bring and what you've given me, and some of the and things that you've given other people. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And how are you doing there in outside? Where are you? And you're in Tennessee, I know, but is it?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. I'm here on the farm, which is an intentional community that I grew up in, and it's the longest running. It's basically a 50-year-old commune, essentially, although it isn't quite a commune anymore. It's more of a collective of people sharing land. But I'm here with about 200 people, and we have a lot of space in nature. So this inability to move about has been softened some by being in nature, for sure.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing. I didn't really realize that's where you live, but it seems like sort of the perfect kind of human abode situation.
Perfect it is not, my friend, but it's good. It's good. Yeah. It gives me, it's really given me the space to dream about what's possible when humans come together. If I was out in the world by myself trying to make something, get a piece of land and make something happen, I think it would feel overwhelming. But being on this land and sharing the responsibility of stewarding it with people has enabled me to imagine that we can do that on elsewhere as well, and that has been really beautiful. Wow,
that is beautiful. It's inspiring for me just to hear that for many reasons. Let's talk a little bit about. I'm always just fascinated by how musicians such as yourself, you know, came to music. How did music really? When did it tap you on the shoulder? You know, were you young and was your family musical, or siblings? Did you take lessons? What instrument did you start out with? I mean, you're a percussionist and also playing other instruments too. But how did all that happen? How did kind of music come into your soul and, you know, take you on this journey or help you on this journey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like many musicians, I think it's very hard to place when it really struck. You know, I know my dad used to play from the time I was born, all through my life, and still does today. He still plays all the time. He plays guitar. He's what I would consider a troubadour. You know, he couldn't tell you what chord he was playing, but he could play 2,000 different songs. And he was he's from Florence, and he would play in Italian and Portuguese and Spanish and Russian and German and English and French, you know, South American revolutionary folk songs, Bob Marley, Stevie Wonder, Bob Dylan, Carlos Santana. You know, it was just this incredibly eclectic songscape that was in my home, to the extent that I didn't know any of those artists exists. I thought, oh, this is just my dad playing. And only about age maybe 4 or 5, I started to realize that recorded music existed, really. Wow. That it wasn't coming from him, that he was singing the songs of other people. That dawned on me slowly. Yeah.
I think
so that's how I feel like I got permeated.
Yeah, I think I'd like to be your father, practically. I mean, that's just, you know, something to aspire to, being able to play a lot of different things, a lot of different songs, just sort of play from the heart and the soul. Wow, what an upbringing. So did you start playing guitar, or when did you start playing yourself, or you were singing or beating on things?
I was always outgoing, and my dad kind of was grooming me for the guitar, but it was not my thing. I did always sing. You know, it wasn't till later, as I became a professional musician and looked back at my life, that I was like, oh, look at that. In elementary school, like, I would write ditties and then the whole school would sing them at the Christmas program. And I didn't think anything of it, that the whole school was singing a song that I wrote, you know. It just seemed normal or something. I don't know. It didn't seem like any kind of musical talent. It was just something that I'd like to do. And then when I was about 15, my older brother, carved me a pair of drumsticks out of wood. Huh. And I basically played every surface, every 5-gallon bucket, every cardboard box until they were all broken. And when everything within a radius of my house was broken, then I started looking for a drum set at that point. So I think it's just in there. I think it's a part of us. It breathes inside our being. And for me, it started coming out as a middle teenager when I really needed something to identify as myself. You know, when I needed something that was me, not comic books or, you know, some other hobby that was externalized. I felt like I needed to find out who I was and what I had, what gifts I had, and music just kind of showed up for me, and I began to pour a lot of energy into it.
That's so great. And then did you start getting into bands? Were you into rock, or were you into a whole different bunch of things?
I did. We got into a band, my brother and I, and his best friend and his best friend's little brother, who was my best friend. And we started a band. We started playing music in a band, if that makes sense. We didn't start and develop some chops and then find a band. It was like, you're going to play drums, you're going to play bass. Oh, I'll play guitar. You know, everybody just picked an instrument. And within 2 weeks, we had our first concert. And we were terrible for a while, but one thing that I have to honor my community for is that when we were kids and when we were teenagers making that music, people would show up and people would dance and people would celebrate with us, and there was very little judgment, and we were encouraged. And I remember there was this guy who had moved from California here, and he was like a jazz musician. He made his own electric basses and stuff. And I remember he walked in the practice room one time, and he looked at us and he said, "Man, you guys really suck." And we were like, oh my God, we were all like crestfallen. And then he said, "But don't worry about it, because you get better." Huh. And it was a light that went on in us. It was like, oh, it's not fate that you stay in one place. When you work at it, it develops, and it like gave us this courage. We were like, oh, we can get better at music. And so we just, from that moment on, we worked hard because we were like, this is a real thing that we can get better at, you know?
So then from there, what was sort of the trajectory to Rising Appalachia? How long was that? I mean, did you play drum kits, and then now you play all sorts of different, gourds and djembes and things, and when you play on stage and all, but what was kind of that trajectory like, and what did you began seeing how powerful it was in a way, this music? I mean, what was going on at that stage with you?
Well, at the time, we tended to idolize the virtuosos of the world. We were, most of the guitarists I knew were into Fish and Santana and Hendrix, and drummers like myself were into David Garibaldi and Elvin Jones, and we were all into the virtuosos. And I went one night in 1995 to an Afrobeat concert in the ghettos of Nashville. And when I say ghettos, I mean like there was a hole in the roof on the second story where there was a 15-year-old tree growing up in the second story of this building where the concert was held. Wow. I mean, it was an old motor company that hadn't been actually used in like 30 years. And this Nigerian guy named Orlando Julius Ekamode, he rented a corner of this building and made an Afrobeat studio. And so my trajectory was essentially that I went into that studio and I saw that concert, and I realized that there was something deeper and stronger than virtuosity that had to do with rootedness. And it changed the way that I played drums. And, so after I graduated from high school, the first place that I traveled to was South Africa. And that wasn't, I thought maybe I would meet drum teachers and stuff there, but that wasn't what the trip really ended up being. But it tapped me in again to a deeper root, a deeper tap root. And then when I got back to the US, I moved to New York City. And in New York City, I met Papalaji Kamara, who was the first djembe player in the United States. He came in 1956. Wow. He played with Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Nina Simone, O.J. Akamode, not O.J. Akamode, but Baba Olatunji. So he was 80 years old when I met him, blind in one eye, and I started to study with him. And we developed a pretty close friendship. I would go, he invited me to join a troupe of his so that I was going actually a couple times a week. And then towards the end of my stay in New York, which encompassed 9/11, so I was there through that and watched the buildings fall from my window, the window of my house. The music was such a part of the healing in that city. And I witnessed what I considered to be miracles during that time. And then before Laji left, because he went back to Africa, he passed on his drum to me. And so that drum was kind of an invitation for me to recognize that the music had to be of service on a much deeper level than my own personal success. Like, why would I get that drum? Why would he give me this drum that he had been playing for 50 years? the only answer I could come up with is because maybe he saw that I would try to help people with it.
Wow.
And so it was like this thing where I was like, I have to use this drum to play with children who don't have more opportunities, and in environments where it's going to uplift people. And that in turn changed the way I approached music. You know, fast forward a few years after that, when I had toured some with like funk and jazz bands after studying with him, and it wasn't the right fit. Mm-hmm. It was the party culture. And even though we had conscious lyrics and like that, the culture around that music didn't fit what I felt like the purpose and mantle that had been put on me was. And so when I started to play with Rising Appalachia, it was working on subtler levels, and it was working inside people who were having a hard time. And I sort of found a place where what I had received as my purpose as a musician found its home. And so I was able to bring that experience with Logi and that masculine energy and support Leah and Chloe, the sisters, to work this subtler form of music that was really important step for me, and it honed me. So that's how I found my way to that project. It was really kind of a quest to find a place where music would be a key into unlocking healing energy inside of people, and not just kind of the more common either party time or, hey, look at me, I'm fantastic, other side of where music can often go as a performer.
Wow, that's so great, so beautiful, and well said. I mean, it's inspiring. So many different aspects of music. So, I think, as I said, I mean, Leah and Chloe and what they bring, and David Brown and Aruna and Duncan, it's there's just something really amazing and synergistic there. I mean, so what is that thing? I mean, what is music? What is that power of music? Have you seen it? I mean, you say it helps other people. We know it does, but the way audiences respond and I mean, how do you describe what that power of music is, and maybe instances you've seen it in particular or stories? It's just, man, the world needs so much of that, and you guys are really bringing it. I'm so appreciative.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I mean, I think what you said, need is a valley, and what's needed has to pour into that valley, and I think that what makes us the way that we are is we in a way it's because we're unsatisfied. We're not content with the way things are going, and we are always trying to understand what's needed that we might not be doing quite well enough. And then we make an attempt on a personal and on a collective level to respond to that need that we see, whatever it is. If it's, we were feeling a certain way about what was going on environmentally in the country, and kind of the sacking of a lot of environmental laws and Standing Rock and right. Pipelines and fracking and mountaintop removal, and it's not enough to just talk about it. it has to be an experience. It has to be something that you are working on in your life, you know? And if it is, and if you can work it out on some level, even just a little bit in yourself, then your music will work that out in someone else. You know, the experience and the willingness to go through it yourself. It creates an avenue where the music gets carried into the people that need that. So again, the need is the valley, but you have to actually go into the valley. You can't just stay up on the top and sing to everyone about what the world needs to be like. There's a quality in the members of this band that makes, for me, it's like, it feels like it's my, in a way, it's my spiritual community, because everyone is working on it. And that's not, we're not alone. Like, there's, everywhere we go around the world, we meet the people that are working on it. And the people that are working on it are served by the music, you know, and we're served by learning about how they're working on it, because it gives us an opportunity to figure out better ways of working on it. And I think that's critical. I think that, yeah, if you want to talk about music and magic, you know, magic is uncontrolled. It's wild by nature. It's wild, and it emerges from the wild. And the music industry needs magic. So what it does is it harnesses the wild magic, and then it tames it, and it puts it in service of reinforcing the ideals that the status quo wants to impose upon people.
Yeah.
That's why you can have an incredible movement musically. You can have something like, you know, the origins and birth of hip hop rapidly becomes commercial fodder to actually control the very people that it was liberating. So I'm saying that because I think as musicians in the last 50 years, and we've been continually funneled into supporting the status quo. Even when we have these upswells of magic, it gets co-opted. And so I think our job as musicians is to continually to retap into the wild and to go far away from what we are told we should do to be successful in the industry, and just keep going for what feels like the real magic. And yeah, you know, there are certain things that you have to do, like you have to be visible, and you have to have an aesthetic that reaches your audience. But that wild magic, that uncontrolled force, that's really where music has its power, and we don't want to give that up.
Wow, very cool. Now, I do want to mention this that happened as when I first came to know of Rising Appalachia, and that was me. I don't know if it was 4 years ago or whatever. They had a Kickstarter, some kind of a thing, you know, a new record coming out, and I said I want to be supportive, and so I looked at the the list of, you know, bennies you could get or whatever, and I'm like, hey, and do I need this stuff? Then I thought, oh well, Skype drum lesson with Biko. And I'm like, well, that sounds pretty cool. That's about the right amount of money that I want to contribute. So I did that. And then I wasn't really sure, did I really need a Skype drum lesson or whatever, but I wanted to be supportive. And then you were nice and you called, and And but what happened was, and this, it really is a transition from what you were just talking about. You wrote on Facebook that you were going off for a month in the winter to a cabin or something like that, and it was sort of okay, I'll see you guys later, but I'm gonna go off and explore, blah blah, whatever it was. But then when you came back, you said, "Oh my God, it was amazing. I wanted to practice 12 hours a day, and I could only practice 5, but I felt kind of bad about it. But then I really had to see what was in my heart in some of this." And I mean, do you kind of remember that? And I couldn't say it, as well as you could say it, but what was that about? That sort of learning, or whatever the lessons were. And it was after that I said, it was after that I said, well, I really just want to talk to Biko to see, to have him, tell me more about this. And we went, it was before Gypsy Sally's. You had a gig there in Georgetown. And you were very nice. And we went out for you had a pre-gig dinner, small dinner we ate. And the one thing you said was, listen, if you want to know about music, just get this book, The Music Lesson by Victor Wooten. It's the only book I took on my adventure, and check it out. So I did, and that has changed my life. It's been incredible. Could go on about that. But so that time you went into the woods and came back, do you remember the things that you were thinking about, or maybe transitioned from or to, or anything about that? It was very momentous for me.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, I remember the whole process you're describing. I remember getting in touch with you. I remember the Kickstarter, and I believe it was for Wider Circles. And I remember we ate a little Japanese dinner.
Yeah. Yeah.
That retreat. So, music has given me more than anything else in my life. It's also taken more from me than anything else. But I wanted to honor how much music had given me. And so the intention of that retreat was to give music something, which was my undivided attention for 30 days. To go somewhere in the mountains alone, where there would be no one else, and to just give to the music. I was a bit naive, thinking that I could just do that and it would just work out. I mean, it was the worst blizzard in 15 years. It was really challenging. But what I wanted to say is that's a very ancient thing for musicians. In India, that was very common. If you were going to become a musician, if you were going to dedicate your life to music, you had to, several times in your life, do a 40-day retreat with your instrument. The difference is that they had mentors and they had a system and guidance, and I went in alone. And you can get burned doing that, and I did. I did get burned by that process. That was a bit much for me, and I was a little bit destabilized by the experience. However, I will say that was the intention, was to really give to the spirit of music something back. And I think that's what we're doing. That's what you're doing. That's what this is about. Like, some of it is about other people, and some of it is about giving to the source, the muses, the energies that make all of this beauty possible, and to just devote time to cultivating and feeding that beauty. So that's what I was trying to do. I might be scheduled to do another one of those at some point soon, because, but structure is helpful when you're doing those type of deep dives. That's for sure.
One of the things that what I sort of remember from what you said is what you realize that what is important is what is in your heart and what do you want to do. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that resonate with what you remember? What is in your heart? And I think it's right and it's true. And I think it also relates to intention. That one of the things in Victor's book that struck me when Michael, the teacher, says, intention is the key to everything. And it's really sort of the founding principle of this crazy little organization we have. And I think about it almost every day, intention. What do I really want to accomplish? What is the right thing, or what do we want to achieve? And I don't mean to put it in terms of, success, like monetary success or something, but, what is in my heart and what do I want to achieve? It's so important. And Victor says the only things you don't succeed at are the things you stop doing. There's so much there. So how are you thinking sort of now about the music and also this pandemic, this crazy thing where the human race has just stopped the world. I want to get off. Well, it did stop. So now what do we do? What are your thoughts about any of that, and where we're heading or what we can achieve out of this whole crazy thing?
Yeah, totally, man. Well, I think you just nailed it on how important intention is. And just to backtrack a teeny bit to the teenage years, we were doing these festivals on the farm, this community where I live, called Unity Fests, and we were raising money to build an ecological learning center slash cultural center. Well, we were teenagers. We graduated high school and we all split. We went to New York City, we went to Berkeley, we went all over. The building sat empty, just the frame, for 10 years. And then 10 years ago, I came back and we finished it. And then I joined Rising Appalachia, and then I went on tour for the last 8 years. And so with this pandemic, I've been home, I've been back in that building that we built with funds that we raised having those festivals. And it's the most beautiful place I've ever lived. I mean, you can see it, the audience can't see it, but
it is absolutely beautiful. Wood, beautiful Nagoni's on the wall.
It's like a wooden, And so anyway, I have a group of people here right now, and we share an intention to continue to develop a cultural and ecological regeneration center. And music is a huge part of that. And permaculture, gardening, water restoration, and sequestering water, learning about conflict resolution, learning about EMT training, medicine, disaster preparedness. All of these things are a part of what's needed. And remember, need is that valley that we pour our lives into. And so this time that I'm able to be still here, I'm just looking at the needs of the world around me, and I'm going, how can I pour myself into those needs, and what should I do with my time? So to keep it from getting too broad, because there's a lot of aspects to that, I've been working on a lot of songwriting, and I find that the songs that I write, even though I'm really nervous about them, and even though I don't it's just I feel really self-conscious about them, when they do get shared, people reflect to me that they're very grounding for them. So I find that maybe they serve some purpose out there. And so I've been doing a lot of songwriting, and I just ordered a recording interface and a set of drum mics, a set of incredible drum mics that I've wanted my whole life. And I'm going to be setting up this space at the Unity Center as a studio to record drums for other people's projects while everyone's at home, to offer my services as a drummer, also to record my own tracks. And I'm getting moving on building what is my dream, which is an oval, a golden means oval shaped music space that is based on metaphysics. You know, it's the size is very exact, 31.7 feet, which is half the sine wave of the lowest note that we can hear. It's a temple, because I feel that we don't build temples anymore for music very often. So anyhow, that's kind of what I'm at, where I'm at. I'm literally in the groundbreaking stage of running water and electric conduit to the site. I have the site. It's going to be made out of super adobe and hempcrete. It's going to be a golden means oval with 4 domes attached to it, like the legs of a turtle.
Wow.
So I'm working on a building, Holy Ghost building, as they say, and I'm working on some recording projects, and then I'm also, you know, doing gardening and participating in the community and in the communication of the community, because probably the area where we have the most work to do is in how we communicate when we're in conflict and how we communicate when we're afraid. And that's where shit breaks down. So just looking at those needs. And then, of course, you know, I'm not a martyr. So what are my needs, and what's the valley of my own need, and how do I give myself to myself in order to be a happy person, which is really the number one goal. And everything else works so much better from there. Yeah.
Peace. Yeah, and what you were talking about during this time of sort of, you know, stillness, it really is something in the air just said, hey, you humans over there, could you, you know, maybe think about what's going on a little bit? But I think it really is important to think of what's going to come out of this and your attitude about it, and all the things, you know, they talk about the essential workers who, you know, we can't get them $15 an hour salaries, but they're more essential than the lawyers and, you know, the other folks. So maybe a prioritizing would be useful. Let me mention one other thing that just kind of happened to me, totally, I don't know, just wild. So I had this trip, which I mentioned to you right before the pandemic started. I went to India and Nepal and had a business trip over there, and I ended up staying a month. And I had some time in India when I didn't have anything to do, and I talked to some people, and they said, I just want to go on some musical, spiritual kind of thing, just see where that goes. And somebody mentioned about Rishikesh, where Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the TM guru, had his ashram, where the Beatles went in 1968. And I said, that sounds like a good thing. I'd go there. And I got a driver, because India, you know, it's crazy. So many people, and saying you can't hardly navigate it. It's just, and I'm up there and kind of doing my thing. I didn't really know where I was going to go. I ended up staying at this nice hotel on the Ganga, and I'm sitting there getting a massage one day and talking about music, and somebody says, "Oh, there's a music place right around the corner." So I walked down a half a block down, you know, the dirt, rocks, cows kind of road, and there's this music ashram, the Devi Music Ashram. And I'm like, holy cow. And it's a big 4-story yellow building, and they have courses in Indian classical music, singing, sitar, flute, tabla, dance. They have yoga, you know, meditations and all this stuff. And I'm like, how did this happen that I just walked into this place, and I said to Raj, who's my kind of the guy I met there, played the sitar, and I said, "Are there more music ashrams around?" And he said, "No, I think it's a new concept." And I'm like, "Holy smokes! The world needs about 1 million of them." And you're living in this intentional community and thinking about developing something that, music is going to be a big focus of it and all. I mean, it just seems like that would be a good thing to have as an intention to try to create more of for people. I mean, what you have is so beautiful and amazing what you do, and it makes me feel a little bit like I'm just a city guy sitting here, But I mean, have you heard of a music ashram? I mean,
there are some in India for sure. Here we have colleges, right? There's this concept right now. There's this movement called the Ecosystems Restoration Camp Foundation, and it was started by a filmmaker named John Liu. And I've recently joined in this group, and we've been having a bunch of Zoom calls and John Liu and I have been talking. And my intention in joining the Ecosystem Restoration Camp Foundation is to bring the music into the picture. And to show that gathering people for a concert or festival can provide energy towards restoring ecology. And also to show that, like for instance, have you heard of Playing for Change?
Yes.
So
it's fabulous.
They're amazing, right? And they've built 16 music schools so far. Yeah. Mark Johnson is the founder of Playing for Change and the producer. Aruna and I actually have a track coming out with them soon. Nice. But Mark, that's the other side, is I want to bring the ecosystem restoration camps into the music schools. And it's like an infinity.
Yes.
There's the arts and the creativity, and they should feed the ecological restoration of the world, which is the great work of our time. The work of our time is cultural renewal, because we are all carrying cultural trauma. We just are. We've been fed into a machine, and we've been lied to about what's important. And then so that's the music's job, is to connect us to what's real inside of ourselves. And then there's the ecosystem work, which is an external work. It has to do with how we live externally and how we use our physical energy to replenish our environment. So I see those two as very intrinsically intertwined, and it's been part of my life's goal to be a bridge between them, just from having grown up in this ecological community and having had that experience, and wanting to bridge those has been a big part of it. And it's also a part of the values of my band. Let's bridge the permaculture and the music. Let's bridge the restoration of the earth with the restoration of the internal self. They all have to happen.
Yeah. And
they happen simultaneously.
Well, that sounds wonderful, beautiful. I'm on board. I'm in. We'll just keep working on all this stuff together. But I'm so happy we had this chance to talk. I know we've been talking about it for a long time, but I think this is the right moment. For some reason, here it happened now, and just want to thank you for what I've learned and for spending the time and sharing your thoughts. And I'm feeling like we'll see you again somewhere down the road. We won't be stuck quarantining forever. Maybe a while, but all the best to you and everything. I don't know if you have anything else you want to, maybe I didn't ask about, or you just want to.
Well, I just want to say thank you, man. It's good to see your face here, even on the computer, and thanks for following your heart and for what you're doing now, and giving me this opportunity to share. And There is, we do have new music coming out. Rising Appalachia has new music coming out. It'll be coming out online. And Aruna Diarra and myself have music coming out. It'll be coming out online. That's Aruna and Biko. So yeah, man, what a treat to see you, and I appreciate you so much, man. I really do.
Well, thank you so much. What you and the band really bring is just wonderful, and keep at it, and namaste.
Right, brother. Namaste. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
All right. Peace.
You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gigs Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gigs Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gigs Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.